Hi there and welcome to lesson 34. In lesson 34 we will be drawing a welding torch. Let's jump right into it. So I've already prepared this one, which I want to put to the side for us and make it slightly smaller. Now while I'm drawing this, mine might change. Ooh. Right, so let's put it to the side and let's lock that layer so that we don't draw on that layer. Here's our, let's call it a rough drawing layer. And I've got a fill layer to block out my isometric grid. We'll be using this a bit later, all right? So don't worry about that for the moment. So if you want to have a let's call it a block out layer, just click the plus next to the arrow next to the plus and click on add fill layer, choose your color, and you should be good to go. All right, so I'm using this brush ink 4 pen rough on my rough drawing. And I'm going to use a grayish blue color as usual. So that's good. All right, before we jump in, let's have a look at what we are aiming for. So I have duplicated that. Oh my. Right, so a rough drawing. What we need to consider when we draw a torch like this, if you look at it from the side, the torch, let's make the torch horizontal, then this comes out, it turns, and the handle isn't always straight or 90 degrees to the flaming part, the flame part. So usually it's at an angle, and depending on brand and make, that angle can vary. So just keep that in mind. So that's part of our challenge we have to consider. So we've got that. Let's make it red for the moment so that we can see. So we've got that angle which follows the grid line, and we'll use that as a guiding as our guide. Then if we draw a line straight up, you can see that it's not actually following our grid. So we can't draw a cube like this. It needs to follow this, but those angles still follow the grid, and what changes is this angle. So we'll get to that. And then the same for the flame part. So this comes out straight like that, and this could follow the grid. Again, you can change that as well so that the angle is slightly more in line with the reference image that you are using. All right, so let's start with the rough drawing. And I want to create a base, so I'm going to not focus on that for the moment. So we want to draw the base, something like that. My second drawing might not end up exactly the same as the first drawing. That actually doesn't matter. So let's make that slightly darker. Even darker. Yeah. Right, so I'm going to duplicate that, Control J, and then using the move tool, I'm going to move it up until I'm happy with the length of the handle. Now remember what we said, that this part is not aligned with this part, so we need to move this forward. So let's move that forward. Now try to keep it in line with your grid while you're moving it forward, like so. That might be a bit too much. Let's see, maybe, I think that should be fine. Right, now you can merge that down again and then connect those lines. Right, so let's flesh out the base or the handle itself. You know what, I think I want to make the handle just a little bit longer. So I'm just going to move it up a little bit more, like that. Right, I think that should be fine. Right, now if you look at the handle, it's almost like an oval or circular object, so we need to change that a little bit, make it slightly wider. You know what, let's leave it like that. I'm not going to make it wider. You can make it wider, but I'm going to keep it like that. I'm going to use that base. Maybe we make it a little bit shorter. Yeah, let's do that. Make it shorter and then reconnect those lines. Right, so now we've got a bit more square base and a little bit more elongated, flatter upper bit. And then we just need to draw that circle. I'm going to lower the opacity of my brush to help me with the scratchy lines. So I'm going to draw my scratchy lines and then I'm going to clean that up with a darker pencil. Right, so now we've got that going. Now at the top it goes even narrower, so I'm just going to trim it down there a little bit and a little bit down there. Right. I'm going to erase that with lowered opacity brush. And then I'm going to raise the opacity and switch back to brush. Right, so we've got that narrowed down, and like always we want to put this part in a box, so we want to bring that down, and with isometric we always need to keep things parallel, so we need to keep these lines parallel to the base we've drawn here. Right, and then we need to follow the grid for all of the lines going to the back, and then we can draw that box in there, bring it down, keeping this parallel to that. So just boxing the trigger area. Right, so once you've done that, what we need to do now is to determine or show that curve coming down. So draw a line going to the back, always following the grid this way. Right, and then from the back we want to draw a curve, and we want to repeat that curve. It needs to look exactly the same as the front curve. Okay, and then it comes down a little bit, so following the grids angle, and at the bottom as well. Right, now with the magic with isometric is if things get a bit short, and I believe this is a little bit too short, you can change it. So you can grab that, using the move tool, move that up until you are happy with the length of this now, and nothing will change. With perspective, linear perspective, you'll have major issues doing this. but with isometric it's an easy edit. Right, so now we've made the trigger area longer. Again, first the box, so draw in that box area. Keep everything following either the grid in that direction or the angles of the box that you've drawn in. And in this case, it also follows the grid. Right, so, and then we want to bring in the trigger, so we draw a little box in there. You can use a ruler if you've got a screen tablet to make things easier. Right, so now we want to shape. The trigger has got it's almost like a cylinder at the bottom, at the base, so it goes something like that. Then it curves in and towards that cylinder. Okay, and we'll clean this up when we get to that point. Right, then the niche or the area for the trigger curves like that. It goes down and then it goes up a little bit. Let's erase a bit. So I'll clean that up now, make it clearer. Comes down like that, give it a bit of a curve in there and forward, down, down, and to the back. We'll sort that out just now. Right, so then the handle comes down towards that circle at the base, but it curves, so we want to get that curve, that nice curve for the hand, so that it follows the hand, what they call ergonomics. So let's bring that down to that circle, and the same for the back. Maybe we bring this in a little bit more. And then we want to, if you look at that, it's got a bit of a curve in there. So we want to bring that curve in so that it follows the back of the handle. If things get a bit messy, use an eraser at low opacity. Erase until you feel that now it's getting scary, and then put it back to whatever opacity you like to work in. So you can have a reference open, but try to understand what you're drawing instead of trying to copy it. It's way better to understand what you're drawing instead of just copying it verbatim and making it look just copying. So understand that how it's made up, how can you break it up into basic shapes and then reassemble it to represent this the object that you are drawing. So I'm just following that curved line downwards, and then I want to bring that circular circle back again. Right, and then for the handle part, the grip part, we want to make it look like that is going to be rubber or something that's non-slip. And then the same for the back, bring that in a little bit, maybe follow that line. So bring it in, bring it, try to imagine that it curves around like that. Then keep it the same distance from the front grip. And then we also want to complete this circle. Right. Right, so I think at the base we can extend it or make it a little bit wider. So we want to draw another circle, or we could just grab that circle. I'm going to remove that part and that part, copy and paste it, and extend it a little bit or make it slightly larger. Bring it down. And then merge it again. Then using the brush tool again, we can add to this. Bring it down, and then that circle again. It's better to draw the whole circle. Imagine you are seeing the whole circle of that base. When you draw this, then just enhance or make the front line a little bit more clear. Right, and then we've got the chord going down, so let's push that up. Right, so here I suggest you draw a guideline right through the middle. Bring it down. You can curve it slightly because this is a bendable cord or pipe, hose, whatever you want to call it. Right, and then we've got another circle in here for where the hose enters into this protective part. Okay, I think I need to open the circle a little bit. If you're struggling to draw a circle, remember to use your grid. I'm just going to use the grid quickly. Then using the move tool and transform tool, you can change this to the angle and size you want. And then if you look at the cord, the protective area, it's got those grooves in, but it's offset so that it easily bends in different directions without breaking the hose or the pipe inside it. So what I want to do now is I want to make my brush as thick as possible, or as thick as those bendy areas, those grooves go into the hose. So make the brush as thick as you want those grooves in the bendy area. And then we've got those grip ridges as well. So let's do that with the thick brush again. Okay, so let's add the detail for those ridges. I just want to remove bits of that so it's easier to see. And I want to draw another line in here for the offset areas. Right, so we want to bring another line in here for the depth of the grooves. Right, and then I'm just gonna draw the curves in for now. We'll add the detail once we get to this in the line drawing. Done. Let's look, and I want to draw another guideline for where this needs to end. Needs to follow this line as well. next up is the nozzle. So draw a middle line from top to bottom, front to back, and then where that nozzle will be situated or be on the top. Then we want to draw a box. Now remember what we always do when we draw a circle, we draw a square. So we want to add a square in here so that when we draw the circle, it's correct in isometric perspective. Right, now that we've got that, using the lasso tool, copy that and then move it up. Try to keep it in a straight line. Then you can merge it down again so that it's the drawing is one again. And now we want to connect that line. So that's the tube coming out of the handle. So far, so good. Now in this drawing I've made the nozzle straight, but let's imagine that it's not at that angle. Maybe it's at a different angle, and we need to try and figure out where this angle goes towards. So let's start off with 2 parallel lines so that it follows the rules or the principles of isometric. Remember, parallel lines always stay parallel, never mind the angle. So we want to take it like that, and now we can draw a box around that, and keeping it parallel, keeping it to the grid, because it still goes along with the grid. We need to draw another box in here. Right. And then we can draw our circle in there. Right, and while we've got this going, we can use the same principle or the same drawing. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to copy that, paste it, and then using Control T, I'm just going to scale it up slightly, duplicate that and move it forward, making sure that it follows my guidelines, this guideline. So if I draw a line like that, it should follow that. Right. We can draw another circle for the opening of the nozzle. Make sure that it follows the same angle, so that it's not too narrow here and too wide over here. It needs to look exactly like the previous circle. I think I made it a little bit too high, so let's bring it down. And now that should work. Right, I think this whole nozzle area might be a little bit far from our torch. So, right, let's merge everything together. And then using the move tool, bring it closer. Right, imagine that there's an curve or arc that needs to go into that, the base where it comes out of the handle. Right, and I think that is basically that's it for the rough. So let's bring it down just a little bit like that. Right, I just want to extend the tube, right, and then give it that S curve to indicate that the tube can continue or continues further on. Right. Now that we've got that, we can create a new layer, and let's call that torch drawing. Right, so I'm going to lower the opacity of my rough drawing. Make sure that you've selected your torch drawing. Press D on the keyboard to set your colors to black and white. Make sure your opacity is all the way up. Pick a size, a brush size. So I'm going to stick with 4, not too thick, not too thin, and we can start drawing. Give it a bit of a bump where the grip area comes in, so that we can suggest that that grip area is recessed into the handle. I suggest you draw the whole line in where this comes out, where the bumps come in, just to erase that bit. It's easier to draw the line in one continuous stroke. It's easier to draw that continuous stroke instead of trying to draw each individual line between each of those bumps. Usually these kind of objects have a seam line so that you can easily take it apart. So we are going to bring in a seam line like that. Keep it thinner than your outlines, so it separates on this line. And then there's another line that could come down like here, which goes into this part of the handle. This part and this part separates. Maybe we don't have a line here, so let's remove that. So we want to bring that in, curve it around, and we said we created this line for the recessed bit of that. Then we bring it forward. So bring it down all the way around, and then that part comes forward, and we've got the recess in there. And I think our drawing is done, so now it's time to jump into coloring. Of course, you can make adjustments to this. You can make it longer, you can make it shorter, you can make the handle smaller, whatever you want to do with your drawing. You can make adjustments to this as well. So I'm going to use the wand tool. Make sure that it is set to this select region found from merging all layers. What I do is I make sure it's set to anti-alias and grow by 1 pixel. So if you don't have it grow by 1 pixel, so let's set it back to 0. It selects the open or this fill area right up to the edge. So if you set it to grow 1 pixel, it grows it right into the line. So now we can add our colors. I'm going to use a yellow color to mimic copper. So let's pick that color, change it slightly. Oh gosh, you know what I want to do? That's your rough drawing. Create a new layer, insert, and call that colors. Now, pick a color, a yellow color, something like that. Then press F on your keyboard to fill that. Select the nozzle using the wand tool and change that to a bluish gray color for metal. And then using your fill that. Then select the trigger with your magic wand and pick a reddish color like that and fill. Then we want to fill the grip with the grip and the hose with a rubber color. And then you'll see that you didn't select all, or you couldn't select all of that. Using the brush tool, color pick that and just fill it in. And then we want a light gray color for the handle, the plastic parts. And we'll paint that in with the brush, the same here. So fill that with a light gray color. I'm not too happy with the yellow, so let's quickly change that. So I'm just going to make a selection of that. Control U to change the saturation and maybe the color, the hue. Bring it up, bring it down, all around. Maybe lighten it up a little bit. I feel happier with that. Right, so, and that's how you draw a torch in isometric perspective. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.